Glad you could make it.
I just heard a lot of different theories of what shape this might take. So. Nothing to be surprised. Hold on to your seat.
Camera's live.
All right, 6 p.m. We'll call this meeting to order. Would y'all join me for a moment of silence, please? The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, do you have the roll?
Trustee Mann. Trustee Gerger.
Present.
Trustee Fountain.
Here.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel.
Present.
Village President Kimsey.
Present. Item 4, public announcements. We'll start with Mr. Gunneville.
My name is Brian Gunneville. I'm part of the Illinois National Guard here at Camp Lincoln in Springfield, part of the 3637 Phoenix Company. Officer Pierce, if you could come up here, please, and down if you would like. So, little backstory, I was actually serving overseas this past winter when the terrible tragedy happened, and I wanted to make it, something special for them to remember their daughter and, just have something physical to remember, because I think that's very important. I'm a family man as well. I got 2 beautiful children and a beautiful fiance of my own. So on behalf of the Illinois National Guard, the 3637 Maintenance Company, and the 5th Group Special Forces, I have a certificate with Carly's name on it that I would like to present to the family. And also, I have a flag that was flown during operations in Jordan and Syria in honor of Carly for her. Thank you very much. You're very welcome.
Mr. Olson, Mr. Kleinertz.
During one of our events, Vernon mentioned having some needs with the police, so our events.
One.
The one of our events, yeah. But we had a great year weather-wise. Obviously great community, and the community chat and the surrounding communities coming out and supporting our events. We're able to offer a donation of $3,500 to the Chatham Police Crime Prevention Fund to help out with things that you guys need. So, thank you.
What fund is that?
It's a lot of corn.
Just real quick, as far as the Crime Prevention Fund, all this money, what we receive also from Crime Prevention goes right back in the community. We do approximately 44 different events throughout the community, anything from ice cream with a cop to you name it, we're pretty much at every event. So the money does get funneled right back in the community. So we're very, very appreciative of the money we received from the Speak Film Festival. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public announcements? Hearing none. Public comments regarding agenda topics. Mr. Greer.
Yeah, I had one. I know we're going to be talking about the meters and like the whole thing on the topic tonight. So just a few minutes ago, people were commenting that the meter history was not available online any longer. I went and looked, and mine is no longer there too. So I wonder if anybody knows if that's some kind of widespread, if it's just certain people that are no longer able to access their meter history, or people that have billing disputes and some of their billing history is gone, because mine was there last month when I checked. I saw a big spike, jumped to 454. This month it's dropped to 322, and now my history is all gone. So do we know if that's a temporary glitch or this?
That's the first I heard of it.
So are you able to pull up an account and check and see if anybody's is working?
I don't know.
Way to verify if you have an account, so nobody knows about that, or if there's any kind of glitch in the software.
That's the first that anybody's complained to me that they haven't been able to see it. So I'll look into it tomorrow.
There's multiple people, so that'd be something that we're going to be voting on history and paying people and settling people's history are all wiped, especially trustees one.
Mine's gone too.
Yep.
Because mine is 50%, and last month was 454, it dropped to 322. It's still hot outside. To drop that much, this seems kind of odd. I know I had a big spike last month. It was 31 days this month, 35 last month. So there's nothing to compare, no history, and so it would be, something that I'd like to know what's going on with that. That's all I have.
And Ms. Farmer.
Yes. Do I need to go up and talk or?
It helps if you're on the microphone. Oh, well, this is your opportunity to address the board.
Okay. As you all know, I'm the one that had the meter issue back in July. Was discovered I had the wrong meter on my house. Been here a couple different times trying to address the problem. 4.5. Actually, they're saying this meter was put on my house when it was built, which is well over 10 years ago. So the Village of Chatham has gotten all this extra money for the last 12, 13 years. I'm asking for the money back since I've lived there, which is 4.5 years. Bill was online today. It's gone down $280 less this month than it was last month. I was offered, you guys wanted to reimburse me $560. I don't know how we calculate $560 when it dropped $280 a month in 1 month with the meter. So this isn't my fault. I don't know why there's not regulations that somebody didn't catch this for the last 12, 13 years. I mean, are these not checked? Like, I don't, there has to be some kind of regulation that you guys are checking the equipment. I've called numerous times, complained. Ladies at the office, so you have a water leak, you need to come get a test kit to check your toilet. You need to have somebody come out and test if there's leaks. There's no, I've been telling you, there's no leaks. Finally, when I demanded that somebody come out, this is when it was discovered. So this isn't my fault that this has gone on since I lived there.
Thank you. And then we move to our agenda. And
Okay, so I'm done.
unless you have more,
Okay.
you get 5 minutes. If All right, with no further public comment, I have a motion to put the consent agenda on the table.
I'll make that motion.
I have a second.
Second.
Motion by trustee Mao, second by trustee Scherschel. Discussion or questions regarding the warrants or the minutes? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel.
Yes.
No old business. Under new business, an ordinance amending the village code regarding errors in utility billing and modifying the claim period. So a motion to put this on the table.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion by trustee Scherschel, second by trustee Gerger. Jeff had drafted this ordinance with the spot in there to strike the previous time frames that were in there, and then an opening for discussion and inserting which time frames you would like to be in there. So
I'll go ahead and start the discussion in reviewing the draft proposals. So I've looked at the ICC. I know we've talked about the ICC, and we have a different time period from our resident to non-resident. It's 12 months for our residents, 24 for our non-residents, and other areas around us are 24-month. What I would propose is for us to at least be consistent with ICC and with the resident and non-resident, and move that and fill in those blanks to 24 months for the billing errors. And I'd also move to put in an appeal period so that when we have extenuating circumstances, it's beyond the 24 months. It should be rare where we have extenuating circumstances. That could be appealed to the board to review, and then we could try to also see, is there a more widespread issue that needs to be evaluated. So I would move that we put in 24 months and with an appeal period to the village board.
Mayor, if I could just ask a clarifying question on that, is that also for the reach back if there's a undercharge by the village, it would be 24 months?
So the appeal would be after the 24 months.
No, I'm talking about if a if the customer is undercharged, are you talking about 12 to 24 on that as well?
Yes.
And then would there be a limit on the appeal period that could, after that 24-month, as to how far back the appeal could go, or an amount?
I haven't really thought about appeal period. I know with the ICC, the reason they came up with the 2-year, from what I found, is there was a customer that had a computer glitch for 17 years. And so that's when they put in the 24-month period for billing errors. But so I don't know that I have a statute of limitations on the appeal period, unless someone else would.
I would think that it'd be up to that board to decide, how much maintenance or how much, what way the extenuating circumstances would hold.
But I guess the other question, I know I've talked to a few of the other trustees one-on-one, and I also talked to our council. I guess one question I've got for Pat, just for clarification, and if you don't know this, that's fine at this point. With the current situation, with the wrong meter and the wrong reader, or whatever that combination was, and that was during the time period of 83 to 95, that could have occurred, or something like that, correct?
It could have been installed because that was the only time that those meters were made.
Okay. Do we know what the number of potential meters that are out there that should be checked by village staff to see if we're in
No.
good shape? Okay.
No. We've had calls to ask people to come, or they've asked us to come and check. We've gone and checked. We have not found any.
Okay.
But we haven't checked every single house. One of the things that we have done is went through and had our GIS pull all the stuff together to find out how many meters are still inside houses or underneath houses. And the plan is to get all those moved out to a pit out in the front yard as quickly as possible. And as we do that, we will replace the meters and the ERTs. So we'll take care of those ones first.
Issues. Hopefully in the near future, whether it's 6 months, a year from now.
It could be longer than that.
Okay.
Because I think we're talking like 1,400 meters still that are inside houses. There's a lot of subdivisions that still have meters in. So we'll put together a plan and we'll tackle it neighborhood to neighborhood, street to street. But it's not going to happen in 1 or 2 years. It'll probably take 3 to 5 years to be able to go through that. We can't afford to just automatically.
I wasn't sure what the
do that.
potential number was, but yeah, I agree. If it's over 1,000, then yes, it's definitely going to take some time. I guess one of the questions I would have is, would this be something that would be eligible for just current residents currently living at that to be able to make that appeal process, or would it be anyone who was a customer to basically appeal that? And my thought is we go back until potentially June, July of 2014, as these are discovered, since that's sort of the time frame that with the most recent discovery, that sort of satisfies the current resident, but then it would also provide some relief to other residents where this same situation has come up, or do we leave that time period as part of the appeal process?
And as I discussed at our last meeting, I thought the 1 year, of course, was too little. The 2 years is a good step. From my understanding, our records go back 4 years. That's right, Pat?
That's when we switched to the new accounting system.
Okay.
We have all the records readily available.
So is it possible we go back 4 years to when we had those records under that new accounting system, and rather than the 2? That's just an idea I had.
So you're saying that 2 years is the most that you can claim, but 4 years is the farthest back you could go to say, oh, I lived at that house, and in 2000, I deserve a rebate. You're saying no, we're only
No, I'm
able
saying
to
go back to 4 years for the rebate that far.
Oh,
And as well, as well as the appeal process and everything else to those records where we have them. And,
And I guess the other part is, so we're not inundated with appeals. I do believe that the errors in billing shown under A1 and A2 are definitely items that a diligent customer should be able to catch, where all of a sudden they go, wait a second, for some reason you switched me to commercial versus residential, I need that corrected. I believe those are corrected fairly quickly. Or if all of a sudden they see a large spike, I believe there's already a process in place under 2 to basically account for those. So I would say any appeals that are outside of 1 and 2 would be, I guess, allowable. I'm not sure exactly how to word that.
Yeah, so we'd have to kind of talk about what you're proposing. One option, as the mayor and I have kind of tried to scramble some language down, would be that any reimbursement beyond the 24-month period may be petitioned to and granted by the Board of Trustees if extenuating circumstances can be shown as determined by the village board and sufficient records are produced to evidence the underpayment or overpayment.
Well, and I guess,
Terry, the only statement that you made that isn't quite correct is she wouldn't have known that she was getting overcharged.
correct.
Right.
And that's why
You said somebody would know that in 2-year period. She didn't know because the readings didn't spike. They
No,
were
no, I'm
just
talking about,
consistent.
I guess I'm talking about items 1 and 2, where all of a sudden there was just a spike. Number 2 would be where all of a sudden there was a spike because we potentially misread the meter. Those are things that most people are going to see.
Now, we cover those in the section where you're asked for relief on that.
That's what he's referring to.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's not in this document, though. This one is direct. This one's supposed to be directly just for.
I'm basically looking at 50.051 errors in billing. So basically, if it's used as the incorrect customer service rate, so all of a sudden they were charged a different rate.
Which is what she was done.
But, well, I think this is more, are you being
Right.
charged a commercial rate or residential, non-resident, resident rate? I believe that's what this refers to and not necessarily
Right.
her situation.
We don't really have a commercial and a residential rate. We just have a rate.
I think
The reason that hers was messed up is because the meter didn't match with the ERT.
I understand
So there's a
that.
formula that you have to punch in to make it work.
But is there not a different flat rate
For
for
commercial.
someone who is residential?
No,
non-residential?
the only difference that we have is outside the village and inside the village. A business gets charged for the same amount for water.
Okay, for some reason I thought, and maybe I'm wrong.
On electric, it's different. With the
Okay,
different
is it the electric where the base
Elec-
rate?
yeah,
is
because
higher?
that
Okay.
has a different base,
Okay,
and
so-
then there's demand meters and everything else.
Okay, so
The
then-
water, it's
Okay, so
it's the
then
same.
if all of a sudden they found out that they were being charged as a non-resident rate versus a resident rate, that would be something that would be easily corrected in 2 years, and it's something that a due diligent customer should catch fairly quickly.
So that would probably
Due diligence.
be an extenuating circumstance.
And then for item 2, where it's misread, that would be something where a due diligent customer would most likely catch within, we'll say, 24 months of having that corrected. And I guess to me, in order to minimize someone coming in who should have fallen under 1 or 2 because they did not do their due diligence in looking at their utility rates, then the appeal process would be for anyone who is outside of those 2 items.
I think you might be overcomplicating if you, similar to what the language is you put it, the board's going to have to decide pretty much in any case.
If it's extenuating.
Is this something that is going to be considered? Yes.
Should you have had due diligence, or should you have?
I think it covers it. The extra language in there covers that. Yeah. Like I said, they're rare, and at the times they come up, that's you can try to forecast or predict what any potential thing could be.
Right.
But until you see it, you're not gonna to know. So I think simpler is always better.
Right.
I would prefer that if you change it, you just pick how many years we can go back and go from there. The process works because, look, she's here in front of the board asking for relief. That would happen again if you changed it to 2 years and hers went back for 4 years. She would still be in here asking you for that relief. I don't think you have to take into account that in case this was in, special circumstances. I don't think that needs to be written in here. If you just want to change the number of years that you can go back, do that in here. They always have the opportunity to come in front of the village board and say, I disagree with what your policy is, and then you guys can address it then. But trying to address all of those scenarios now and trying to get that in an ordinance, I think is going to be tough to do.
Yes, at the same time, also, it could be, we'll see 1 or 2 a year, potentially, or maybe more.
If that.
But also, I don't want to see a large flood coming in if it's something that a due diligent customer could have taken care of with 1 or 2.
Well, I think you guys
That's gonna be
control the floodgates on your decisions.
That's going to be your that's going to be your debate at any point in time.
So for
the
this-
ordinance and the policy is what is set there. So this ordinance is what drives our policy, similar to what it is now. In our code of ordinance, it says 12 months for this, 24 months for this. That's what drives the decision maker from the utility office, and that's their guideline that they know that they can do within these lines without having that full.
What is the language that you guys came up with right now?
It's out of order for me. I can't read through your notes now.
Yeah, you just can't read my handwriting. Any reimbursement beyond 24 months may be petitioned to and granted by the Village Board of Trustees if extenuating circumstances can be shown as determined by the Village Board and sufficient records are produced to evidence the overpayment.
Yeah. So for this situation, it's beyond the 24 months, obviously. That could be then petitioned to the village board for us to review, for the full 4 years.
I'd make a motion to amend it to read that.
I think that's part of my motion, you can second it.
No, I think, because
Now we got language.
No, with that language.
Yeah.
I make a motion to add
And I'll second that.
yes language.
Further discussion on the amendment. This will include the change to 24 months plus the
appeal process.
Madam Clerk on the amendment.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Further discussion on the ordinance as amended. Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Item 2 is, there is no item 2. So moved. You want to address the circumstances to Ms. Farmer in your Utility Oversight Committee?
Sure.
Beginning with the recommendation.
Sure.
That
So,
meeting is,
Yeah.
and that's prior to our next board meeting when a final action would.
Right. So Ms. Farmer, I would recommend the president, village president, will tell you when our next utility commission meeting is. It's coming up. It'll be 2 weeks. Bring what evidence you have and make your plea to us there, and then we can have conversations. Here it's a little different. I'll have Pat pull some specific information for all of our commission, and then we'll make a recommendation to the board, and then the board can act on that recommendation. All right.
Good. For their convenience, it's helpful if it's sent early. If you have some stuff you want to look at, especially if it starts to get thick. The more time they have to be prepared to have a discussion with you, the better it is.
Because I know
What we'll have is, I'll go back. We've got all of her electric records for the last 4 years.
Let's
go back and have all that stuff pulled and shows exactly how much water she used, how much she got charged for it, how much she was overcharged, and how much she should be refunded for that.
And then you have that formula chart to where she can even back into it and look at that stuff as well.
Gave that to you, I think, when you came in. Yeah.
So then the other thing I would suggest is then you come to us with a figure you think you're overcharged. I know Pat has done that work on this end, and that way we can discuss it as a panel too, to see what the actual overcharges are.
Yeah, I wasn't able to access, I can only access a year online.
So is there any way to get her
I can
access to her online account prior?
Jamie got your email address or Dustin?
I believe so.
Leave it with, we'll leave it with Pat tonight.
Okay.
Just leave it with
Get
Pat
it
tonight.
get it to you, but the thing you made the correct statement at the very beginning. You did nothing wrong here.
Yep.
We're not trying to say you did anything wrong. It was a mistake, but what we had to do was we had to follow the rules the way that it's laid out for us to follow.
And so people know that this isn't a handbook that was passed into ordinance. So it becomes the law of the village. So it wasn't like Pat's just going because the handbook says it. Well, the handbook was passed into ordinance. So that's our action tonight, was to change that. And now we can look into the case and hopefully help.
I appreciate Pat saying that too. It wasn't your fault. And I also appreciate that the village, when they came there, they let you know right away that, you know, they alerted you. And so I think that shows their professionalism. So I'm appreciative to our village staff for doing that. And it led to us being able to review that and getting this corrected and fixed. So.
All right, do we have any public comments regarding village business, other village business?
Quick question. Are the electrical bills done in-house or are they done outside?
As far as
Calculation, distribution, that type of thing?
They're done in-house. Once that file is completed, we send it to a company and they print the bills for us. Okay.
Any additional public comments?
Dave, I do have one item to definitely put on the next agenda for the committee of the whole. I know there was a email sent out concerning a quiet zone to everyone who's been elected. I did respond back to the gentleman. I would ask that we ask our council and engineering to come up with a estimate cost to do a quiet zone.
Could it be a committee item?
Yeah, committee of the whole item, but I didn't read it because it was an attachment, and I didn't want to cause the village to have a
crash.
So it is okay to open?
No,
it was a Word document.
Terry's got a horrible virus on his computer.
No, it's strictly on the phone. I guess
There was no there were no hyperlinks inside of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Also ignore
I'll
all the
open it.
emails you got from Terry after he opened it.
But I would ask that chief counsel and engineering, take a look so that they can provide us with some sort of a cost that would take to come up with a quiet zone.
All right. Scheduled meetings, Public Properties Recreation Committee, 6 p.m. September 10th. Utility Oversight Subcommittee, Ms. Farmer, this is the one, 7 p.m. on September 10th. Village Board, 6 p.m. September 11th. Committee of the Whole follow. ADA Transition Plan Committee, 6 p.m. September 18th. Planning Commission, 6 p.m. September 20th. Village Board, again, 6 p.m. September 25th. And the Police Commission, 5:30 on November 15th. No need for executive session this evening. Having no further business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting stands adjourned.
Okay.